Morning.
Good morning.
Hi, Flora. How are
I'm
you?
good. How are you?
I'm good. It's nice to see your
Nice to
face.
see you. How is your knee doing?
I don't know. I'll find out. Got the x-ray yesterday. I imagine they'll call my PA with the results. She was thinking maybe I fractured my kneecap.
Oh,
So we'll find out.
okay.
I'm a tough broad though, and I've been getting by.
Are you using a crutch or?
No, just hobbling.
Yeah.
They actually gave me a pain pill prescription yesterday. It was like a miracle out of my clinic. I've never, ever had one. And I have my other knee, I get steroid shots in it. So it's feeling better this morning. I started taking them yesterday. It's feeling better this morning than it has this whole time. So that was nice.
That's good.
I don't know. How are you?
I'm good. You know, you reminded me of pain pills. Let me step away for a moment because I forgot to take my pain pill this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, where did I put my coffee cup?
Everybody's mute. I don't know who's now muted. We're now muted now.
You guys are on mute now.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
There-
how are you?
Hi,
We-
Liz. I'm Stu. I'm Susan.
How
Yes,
are you?
hi.
I muted myself.
Stuart and Elizabeth, we new to this thing and we don't know how it works, but we would like to help out. And we got the link for my son and we just want to listen to hear what's gonna happen and how we could help.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I think Vara will run the meeting. She's it was her brilliance came up with this idea, but I imagine we'll just give a little more time for some more people to show up.
Yeah, that's why we knew that you had something last week by AT&T, and we thought it's gonna be our local store, and nobody was there. So we see that you need more people to participate.
Yes, it's a new and growing movement. And
You
to
doing,
get down to brass tacks, we're going to need millions of people, and it's going to start people like us. We're the beginning.
hope so, and you all for voting right, women right, or what else you include?
I don't know everything specifically, but it will not just be for women's rights or abortion. We're going to cover all the big issues of the day: justice, accountability. I'm not in on the whole plan. But this is a little bit I've been told, and I do know for a fact this is not the only issue that we'll be creating long-term strikes for.
Are there local organizations?
It depends where you live.
Well,
We,
we're in the Boston area.
In the
we
Boston area, I'm surprised.
really done in South.
I'd be surprised if someone from Boston didn't participate on December 1st. So we'll do the best we can to hook you up with people that are nearest to you, okay?
All
Okay,
right.
fine.
Okay, thank you.
Do you mind if I ask who your son is?
Yes, Morton Ehrenberg.
I don't know why I thought Mort was your son. As soon as you said that.
Yeah.
We the same last name.
Mort's on our Twitter crew with this. Mort's a very vital part of this whole movement.
Yeah, we know.
I see that Mort is signed in.
Oh,
Good.
Hi, everybody. It's 9:30, so I'm gonna say a few things, but usually people are a few minutes late signing on, so we're not gonna start the critical portion of the meeting of the actual agenda until 9:36 is what I find would be a good time. We allow time for stragglers, but not the ones who forgot about the meeting altogether. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We started out with a launch last week. And if folks want to talk about what you did last Wednesday on the 1st, how you spent your day, and maybe how you heard of Strike for Choice, it'd be nice if you could speak up, because I think the group is going to be too large to actually do intros after everyone's here. So we can just get chatting.
That's good. I was very busy on December 1st, organized 3 different actions at home. And Strike for Choice made it so easy. I mean, the AT&T script was made for us. We were told what to do, when to go, how long to be there. It was just step by step by step. And it was so easy. And you guys might not think it means too much in the grand scheme of things yet, but we made the local news, print and TV. And when that starts happening in more towns across America, people are going to start to notice. And I'm still kind of wired from that.
Yep. Congratulations. No, getting on the news is big. It's worth actually a lot of money, even getting on the local news and print media. You can compare to what they charge for ads to figure out what that media was worth. It's a lot, believe me. And the fact is that when you do something as an ad, it's not given the, if you see an ad in the paper, you're not going to give it as much attention as a news article, right? So what you produced is worth more than what they charge for ads of the same length or of the same coverage in the paper, right? That's how to think about it. And this is played out across the country. The latest was on Sunday, the Florida protesters did a protest that was part of Strike for Choice. And they got on the local Fox affiliate. And the reporter actually is a covert pro-choice person who works for Fox. So they did a relatively balanced coverage of the protest, which then has led to a huge recruitment. They've had a lot of people calling in and joining them, right? This is exactly how we build. So,
while we have a few moments, Elizabeth and Stuart are looking for people to hook up with in Boston. Was there an action in Boston, and can we help them with that?
I'm trying to remember what the name of the town was. Did you go to a particular location? Stu, do you? I'm trying to remember which one it was.
I am muted.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't aware of that there were specific locations.
Uh-huh.
I went to the AT&T store in Plymouth, where we live. We're about 40 miles from Boston.
Okay.
And there was nobody else there. I mean, I had a sign, but there was absolutely nobody else there.
Which is fine. So the thing is, were you alone, or did you, did you go with somebody else?
I went alone.
Okay. So.
Okay. Anyway, I found there was a site that had locations, and the nearest one was an hour and 20 minutes away.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it wasn't gonna
So
happen.
we'll get into this in the meeting, because we don't want people to be spending 3 hours driving to protest, back and forth. That's not a good use of anybody's time. We do want people to go to their local stores. But until you build, you're not going to find, in your neighborhood, there's probably someone who cares deeply about choice, but you haven't found each other. It takes a little bit for that to happen. And we can talk about how you might be able to recruit folks to go with you. You don't need a big protest. We're talking about minimum 2. We really don't want people to go alone, although a lot of people did go alone. And 1 is a protest. If you're a person of privilege, it's fine, it works, right? But I mean, for example, we had a pregnant lady who's due next week who did a protest on her own. That made me very nervous. I would have liked for her to have 1 friend with her. And that's what we call for, 2 people, their safety in just that.
Unfortunately, Elizabeth was ill at the time, so she couldn't come with me. We've tried, to try if we can get a little more information. We'll try to speak to some people we know. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we're not getting together with as many people as we might otherwise. And that's a little restrictive. But again, if you can get a larger group, maybe you would be able to get some media coverage of it.
Yeah.
1 or 2 people are not gonna.
Well, you can get coverage out of 1 or 2, it's possible. And we'll talk about, what we can do. Okay, so we're at 9:36. So I wanted to start with a little video that is in a beta state. It was put together last week, and I'm just going to say a few words over it when we don't have the audio for it created yet, but the visuals themselves are pretty cool. So let me figure out how to share my screen and then get started. 1 second. Sorry, I'm not a Zoom expert either. So
You're the best we have.
yeah. Okay, so let me see. And then Okay. So a lot of life as we know it, we got it because of strikes in the last century, as it turns out. The most recent effective strike was in 97, which is quite a while ago. And so we've turned to marches. And let's look at where strikes have worked. On the railroad tracks, locking businesses up, closing things by force, and emptying the streets. In France now. So this is the important
Nobody.
visual here, empty train stations. In Poland, they're under an autocracy. So they rose up really effectively, but they failed to change anything. Ireland is still a democracy. They use strike for choice as their slogan. They got all parts of society to join in, formed a coalition. The question
I
is,
love that sign.
what's it going to take here?
That's
So,
good.
yeah, so I'd like to, give you a few thoughts and then open it up for discussion, right? So the primary thing I want to say is that the word protest has been sort of hijacked in America, right? It no longer means strike. People think of marches as what protests are. And marches have been effective in our past. People marched in the 60s and won a lot of the advances in social justice that we have today, right? Civil rights were won by marching. But the thing is, those were actually strikes, if you think about it in the full scheme of things, because there were actions that were disruptive, that hurt local economies, that stopped businesses from functioning as usual. And then there were also marches, right? And that's how the advances were won. In the last 5 or 6 years, what we've had is marches only, with no other actions, right? So we keep having these Saturday marches. Let's think about what happened during the Trump era. Starting from the day after his inauguration, we've had marches. What did we actually win? We won no concessions, right? There were no changes to how they behaved. They continued in full arrogance because the marches really weren't effective. They weren't afraid of them. Nothing changed. It didn't affect the stock market. It didn't affect any of the measures that Trump used to talk about or cared about, right? It didn't affect any of his donors. It didn't affect the capitalist system we live in. So that is something we have to change. And we need to look at what has worked in recent times, right? In post social media, post Facebook, Twitter, now TikTok times, what has worked? And what has worked is strikes as a mechanism of protest. So when we talk to our friends about protesting, we need to make sure that we define it carefully. What is protest? It's not just Saturday marches. It is defined as a strike, and then you grow out from there, right? So anybody have any thoughts? Do you want to say something about the video or what I just said?
I thought the video was very good. I familiar with the background you gave on striking, and that they have pretty much all been labor. They've all been labor, eh? And I've been using the term political strike with this. I don't know if you like that or not, but I've been using the term political strikes. Now,
Yeah, I'm seeing something in the chat, and so I want to clarify, we're not rejecting marches, right? What we're saying is that a vast majority of America, suburban America, assumes that because they've marched on a Saturday once a year, they have done their bit. And I'm not saying that anybody in this group is in that position, right? Because we're not. We are aware and we're here, right? But I know among my friends, among my neighbors, among my community, there are people who will call me when Women's March announces a Saturday march and say, do you want to go with me? And that's it. When I call them back saying, this is the protest we're trying to do, they will not show up. They've done their bit, right? And that's a problem, because we need all those people. We need all those people striking regularly. We need all those people marching regularly, if marching is all they're willing to do. But they need to do that more than once a year. They need to be willing to take a day off to do it, not just do it on a convenient Saturday, right? That's what we're talking about. We don't want to put down anybody's actions. We need more from everyone. Does that make sense?
yes.
Yes.
So the thing is, we've got to find these people.
But finding them is
teach 'em
not
what
the
you-
only thing. We need to change their minds, right? What is protest
Okay.
is what
Okay.
needs to change. Because we know where to find them. All the indivisible lists, all the lists that everybody has of people who have been out in the streets at least once during the Trump era, probably 5 times, right? Most people who care about democracy have marched 5 times in the past 5 years. We need more out of those people. So that's what we're trying to brainstorm.
Okay.
So Jay has stuff to say in the chat. Do you want to speak up, Jay? We want to hear you. Jay? Well, okay, he says he doesn't have a microphone on his computer. So I will say this, right? One of the things that we are seeing in social media is when you talk about abortion rights or the danger to democracy, I don't know if people have seen Heather Cox Richardson or the Atlantic article that was published a couple days ago, talking about the ongoing coup, right? Now, on social media, when people talk about it and they post about it, what you're going to see is folks coming in and saying, vote blue, right? Vote blue no matter who, get out the vote in 2022. This is an ongoing thing. People who will come in robotically and say this. The thing they don't realize, so those folks, they're probably well-intentioned. What they're doing is sabotaging our hope of saving democracy. The reason is at this moment, we're 11 months from the next election, right? We're several months from the first primary. Most people, and many people who are going to be running have not even announced yet, right? So what does it mean if you say, oh, vote blue in 2022? You're just putting off the problem. You're saying, oh, then when it comes to it, I will do something. But right now, I'm just going to sit here and chant vote blue. That doesn't do anything, right? The problem is that right now, if you read the analysis, it's pretty clear that voting rights are decimated. And with the laws that exist right now, whatever it is, 11 months after the insurrection, if Trump was trying to do a coup today, he would have succeeded. Because the current laws would have permitted him to take over the states that he did not win, right? So that's what we have right now. So if we don't do anything to change that, then what we're going to have is a coup. in 2024 or before, right? That's guaranteed. So just voting is not going to save anything. Right now, we need to end the filibuster. We need to pass voting rights. If we're going through the process to actually save democracy, is that going to happen? It depends, right? If millions fill the streets and demand an end to the filibuster, it will possibly end. They will possibly be able to pass the 2 laws that are on the books right now, passed by the House, waiting for the Senate. But will we rise up? Not if we just sit there and say vote blue, right? Is that pretty clear? And by the way, Jay is a she. I'm sorry for assuming Jay's a he. Anybody else want to talk about what you're seeing in terms of, focus on the 2022 election and get out the vote as a distraction?
Some of it is concentrated propaganda, I believe, intentional, to just keep people sitting in their easy chairs thinking, it's all I got to do. That'll fix everything. All I got to do is vote in 22.
Yeah.
I mean, we are targeted.
Yeah.
With a goal of somnolence, I think.
Yeah.
They want us doing nothing.
Yeah. I agree with that, because anything that actually dissuades people from taking action, you can be sure that the hostile forces to democracy have seen it and they've figured out how to amplify it, right? So the people that you're actually seeing in your groups chatting saying vote blue are probably folks who are very well intentioned. They will write a ton of postcards as it comes to the election. They'll be drawing things, crafting stuff, doing a lot of work. But right now they're hurting the cause of, awareness. That's definitely true. And, yes, student.
You're using the term blue as opposed to red, using a phrase just about Republicans. I think you need to concentrate more on going against the radical right, because people might identify more so that these are the bad people, the radical right, as opposed to just in general Republicans, because there are probably some Republicans, which has been shown in some cases, that aren't really against what you're interested in.
Correct. No. So this vote blue terminology is not something we are interested in saying at all, right? We're saying that we see this and it's not helpful. That's our position, that people saying vote blue are not helping. Because,
right. And also maybe just saying get out in the street, maybe it needs to be organized a little better in areas where you might have some moderate Republicans that might react to pressure from their constituents to maybe reconsider how they might vote.
Absolutely. So one of the things that, so we're going to send out a couple of articles to everybody on this call. And one important thing is an article that was actually, it's a research paper, but not, it's not dense. It's a brief paper that was put out by the Graduate School of Business, Stanford, which talks about how protests swing elections, right? That's the title of the article. And they've done, proper research on this, where they're basically saying in districts where you can swing the vote, you have a situation where protests in the streets affect which way the election goes, because people feel motivated by seeing others out there who they can identify with or not, right? And what happens is they either decide to vote or not based on how they feel in their community, right? So if in a swing district, in a purple district, as they call it, if you have a bunch of pro-choice protests, what might happen is people who don't feel comfortable about speaking about abortion might say, I don't know, they feel strongly about it, maybe I just won't vote this time, right? And that helps the progressive candidate win. And the reverse is true as well. If you have a bunch of Trumpers flying their flags, being out there dominating the streets, you're going to have progressives feel, oh my God, all is lost. Maybe I'm going to think about moving to Guatemala or whatever, right? Instead of voting. that happens too. So it's a little bit of both, and it's really important to have that street presence to make sure that voting turnout is increased. It's not just get out the vote, knocking doors, writing postcards. Protests help turnout. And it's really important to have those protests in those swing areas, as Stu's talking about.
It's like, I like that we're
Let's hear
focusing
Justin.
on something besides. Oh, sorry. Okay. I interrupted. I like that we're focusing on something different. New strategy.
Justin, we can't hear you. You want to say something?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's getting louder. Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, specifically talking about the whole thing with vote blue no matter who. I'm paying a lot of attention now to Pam Keith, Don Winslow, and Sherry Jacobus. Okay, and one of the things that is going on is that Don Winslow, he's been saying that we have a problem now, and the problem is not the Republicans, the problem is the Democrats, because the Democrats need to be doing something. The Democrats need to be pursuing the role of accountability, because without accountability, there cannot be justice. And what I found is that there are tons of trolls that Don has even been interacting with, like outright trolls. And a week or two ago, I had a Twitter Spaces, which is an amazing platform to build community. It is an amazing platform. And I was targeted and it was taken down. And the trolls that were taking me down were all following sports. Okay. And I looked, and the trolls that Don was talking to had some kind of sports references. And they were saying things specifically like, oh, well, you're just a doomsayer and you're not, you're doing everything to split the party. And this is something with six people. So there's a targeted campaign against us to make us think that speaking up against our leadership is somehow bad. It's not bad. It's us speaking truth to power. Pam Keith has been very effective in communicating who the real enemy is. And rather than saying anything about Republicans or Democrats, okay, she's been saying we're up against fascists, okay, outright fascists. And she's been very, very good at communicating that Merrick Garland, she believes, she's a former Navy JAG, she believes and is stating fully that there was a deal made between Biden and McConnell, and it's why McConnell voted for Merrick Garland, because in return for not prosecuting Trump and people in Congress, that McConnell would vote for him, and Biden would have a functional attorney general. Now, I can't speak to whether or not this is true, but that makes sense to me with everything going on. Matt Gaetz has not been indicted, and he was found guilty of he was found to have, sexually harassed people, and all of these things. No one is being held accountable, and without accountability, there can be no justice. And in 2022, if we go into this and no one has been arrested, then everyone on the right is going to say, well, what happened? Nobody did anything illegal. And so that right now is our biggest problem. And so, from the beginning, you said we should target the U.S. attorney's offices, and I have all the information for that, because right now there's a lot of demand for justice. Okay, and I mean, Steve Bannon, he had his contempt of Congress put off. The judge put it off until July of next year. How are we ever going to find justice with that? So now we should push for things like inherent contempt. Ted Lieu has been pushing for that, to bring people to account. So if we start galvanizing people around something that we can all agree with, okay, is that these people need to be held accountable, because if we don't start there, then the people are not galvanized over choice now. It's so sad, because they don't think they can do anything, but we can do something with people. If we can get one person to become indicted, all right, if we can get one person to end up in jail, Susan McDougal wouldn't testify against Bill Clinton or Monica Lewinsky. She spent 18 months in jail. What's going to happen with Mark Meadows? And Don Winslow's proved Mark Winslow was never cooperating. It was misinformation on behalf of the entire media. Everyone was reporting wrong. So, you know, things like this, Mark Meadows needs to be held accountable. If we don't do that, why am I going to vote for a Democrat in 2022 if they're not going to do their jobs?
Yep, we should force accountability. Now, Evie raised hand. Do you want to speak?
Yeah, I appreciate what everyone said. I think it's really important. I think the idea that we can count on elections to save us on a lot of these issues right now is correct. And similarly, I think your comments, Vera, and your video about needing to move beyond simply the 5 marches in 5 years strategy is really good. What concerns me, and the reason that I came to this meeting, was to start organizing and figuring out how women are being organized, and other people too. I don't mean to stand up for their right to have an abortion. And I'm just curious, because my experience in protest is that kind of organization happens over time. And if I love the history lesson, but those mass marches are built over time through organizing, through smaller actions. And I'm just interested and want to be directed, I guess, towards that. I mean, that's why I'm here, because I think, you know, we can talk about the election coming up, but we should talk about what the Supreme Court's going to do in June.
Yes.
Just basically take away women's right to bodily autonomy.
Yes.
And which has already been, you know, slowly stripped away. So that's, you know, and I love what people have said, but that's what my concern is.
Right. And that's what Strike for Choice is about. So what I think this is a good time to bring up Granny Ruth and have her talk about, so we should play the video. Granny Ruth, do you have that little clip that we have from your December 1st protest, or shall I just bring it up on the Raging Grannies?
I don't know how to put it on.
Okay, let me just bring it up on the Raging Grannies page. Is it on there?
It's on IndieBag. Here, I can send the link.
Okay, so this answers the question of what you can accomplish using a small protest. Now, Granny Ruth's protest at the Whole Foods locally in Palo Alto was not really small. Small is 2 people. Okay, and 2 people is a protest. It's valid. It can be very effective. Granny Ruth's protest had about 15 protesters, so that's a good size. But it's worth it to understand the techniques that she applies, because she's been doing this for a long time, and there are tips that we can all use from this. So here,
It's in the chat.
Yeah, I see it. Here we are. So I'm going to just play this video once I share my screen.
While you're setting it up, I'll tell people that we did not expect to have police come, because we were protesting at Whole Foods, and we've protested at Whole Foods about different things, different issues before, and they've never called the police on us before. We did not expect that to happen, and what you're going to see is our reaction when they came. And I'm a member of the Raging Grannies, and we are not a group to taunt police or do anything like that, but we just kind of organically felt that this police person should not be harassing us to get back on the sidewalk. We felt like we were having a very successful demonstration to call on Whole Foods to speak out on behalf of women in Texas. They have their headquarters in Texas, and most of their customers are women with uteruses. So, as Vara likes to say, people with uteruses. And just to let you know, we're in the San Francisco Bay Area, so we're a little bit more out there than maybe some other locations. But this is what happened after we've been protesting about half an hour.
Okay, I'm going to play this.
We have no leader. We have no leader. We have no leader.
We're not seeing the
I
video.
don't- did you share the video? I don't see the video.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Sorry, let me start again.
It's
I
good.
thought I was sharing
It's
my
good to see
screen.
everybody. It's good to see men in our group as well. So that's the policeman walking around. You can see Whole Foods behind him, the Whole Foods sign. And we were getting out into the street. So that's why he was trying to tell us to get back on the road. And we just held up our signs. So, you know, he could see them. We didn't move back. Some of us were actually on the sidewalk. And as you can see, people, you know, kept walking around. And then now he's going into the store to talk to management. So our assumption is that management called the police on us. What we did was we kept singing. We had a song about Whole Foods. Please, your CEO is. We called him out by name. He's somebody. If any of you are interested in protesting at Whole Foods, that CEO is someone who has had a history of. He actually, some years ago when we were trying to get Obamacare, healthcare, he actually said that, oh, we don't need that because people need to take care of their health by eating healthy foods. Wasn't quite, I can't remember, it wasn't quite that clear, but it was clear as I just said it, but it was clear what he was saying. So there's many reasons to protest Whole Foods, and yeah, most of their women, most of their customers are people who, well, you know, both men and women and people of any gender need reproductive health guaranteed, right? As I've heard some men in San Francisco say is, men, don't think this is just about women. They're coming for you too. You know, we don't know exactly the motives of the Supreme Court justices or the right wing, but they clearly do not mind denying people the right to reproductive choice, and that extends to men as well. So that's why we targeted Whole Foods. Like I say, we were really surprised there were police involvement, but you know, they are not going to. I don't want people to worry that they're going to get arrested, because you can always just say, I'm going. You can always just move. Where we were in a group of 15, which is why we got to, singing loudly and saying things that, saying things like, we don't have a leader. We're just kind of spontaneous. We don't have a leader. We're not going to move. Whose streets, our streets, that kind of thing. So it was a little more in your face than maybe a lot of you want to get. But there are ways of dealing with the police. And they just basically want to keep, they got better things to do than to worry about protesters. So I just want to encourage people to not feel like, oh, the police might come and things like that. Now, I've also put, since I have the mic here, I've also put some ideas for getting like-minded people into your group. I specifically was thinking about the guy from Plymouth, so it's kind of addressed to him, but it might help you get some ideas about drawing other people. I found Instagram helpful, although you will get trolls. You can block them. So that is something I found helpful in reaching out to people. We had several people, we had 15, and we had at least 3 people show up and say, oh, they just knew about it from Instagram, or they had reached out to us via Instagram. So, it's a little bit, if you've never been on Instagram, there's a little bit of a learning curve to get onto it, but it has been really good outreach for us. So if you can see the chat, there's other ideas for the guy in Plymouth and other people as well. And I'll
Joan
stop
had
now.
something to say.
Mhm.
Hi, from Portland.
Hi.
I just wanted to say how encouraged I was talking to people at a Whole Foods near where I live last week. And I was out for 2 or 3 hours with my dog, and that felt non-threatening to people. And I'm a good waver, and I just stood on Burnside, which is a busy street, and there's an entrance to the store, and I just waved, and I had my little flyers, and I had something pinned on top of me, and it didn't feel appropriate there to go in by myself to the store, so I stood outside. And Portland has been so active in the last couple of years, and I've gone to a lot of protests, nighttime ones during our 200 days. And it's a very kind of fractured protest scene. And I think the daytime events can be really helpful. And the message is very non-threatening.
You mean Oregon?
Yeah, sorry, Portland, Oregon. Yeah. So anyway, that's just, I wanted to report in that my privilege of a white middle-aged lady with a dog was very, very beneficial.
Thank you for that.
I had
So Granny Ruth
I
had
had-
something else she was going to finish with. So I want her to talk about the Code Pink and Raging Granny's strategy for when police are called. And the reason is this was not the only location. I attended 2 protests and police were called at both. And we've heard from multiple other locations where there were several police officers, not just one guy. The other one that I went to, they sent 4 officers. We were only 5 protesters, right? So this happens, and the strategy for dealing with police is something that Granny Ruth can advise us on. So will you talk about that?
Yeah, it's simple, and then I'll let other people talk. Agree, thank them, move, say, yes, I'm moving, and do it very slowly, especially if you have a lot of signs or bags or things to pick up. You don't have to be in any hurry, and sometimes they just want to come by and tell you, move on, and you can say yes, and then not do it. But if you move slowly, and if you, Raging Grannies are old, so we do that slowly, that's one method. And, you know, I don't recommend getting it into police, but sometimes you can just say, you know, we have a right to be here. These are our streets.
Thank you.
And, you know, it's public sidewalk. Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say. I really like hearing from other people. So I want to hear what everybody has to say. Please share. I'm loving it. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a few things. Just following up immediately on that, I think one thing, if you get to the protest location early, you can befriend police, right? Especially if you don't appear threatening. That'll make a big difference if things escalate later, right? You already have some relationship with the police, and you can create that. But I think following up on what Ruth was saying earlier about Whole Foods and their CEO, I think we should be very aware that Whole Foods is owned by Amazon, right? And look to what Amazon did with the strike, or no, the movement to form a union in Alabama, I think it was, right, where they use a lot of underhanded tactics, right, to squash that. They're very hostile to all sorts of movements, and I think we should plan for that and try to have some awareness around that as we build these movements. A couple other things also on the sort of corporate front. And I think it ties into a lot of the other issues. I think we're targeting AT&T, and we should be aware of the media landscape, right? So also tying into what we're talking about, complacency, right? And sort of this engineered complacency, and exactly how, whether it's the trolls that Justin was talking about earlier, or like more mainstream things, that AT&T owns CNN and OANN, right? One America News Network, which is far right. And I think understanding those narratives is really important. There's a couple things. I think also following up on what Justin said about, so Pam Keith is really great. I remember she had a tweet probably almost a month ago now where she was really raising an alarm. I don't remember what the particular issue was, and she talked about how we need to form coalitions. And I know I had replied to that with a long list of groups that I thought were important to include, and it didn't go anywhere. This is sort of the nature of things, especially on Twitter. I think they kind of die on the vine because it's a very high turnover platform. But I think engaging, maybe we can do something collectively within this movement, or maybe as a satellite sort of thing, to bring in all the organizations that have made their own inroads and done things locally or even nationally, but on smaller scales, and get them together, because that's what we really need.
So absolutely, and that's something that we are focusing on, and we need you, Mort. We need you to be talking to the organization. So let's connect on the side, and anyone else who's willing to be a spokesperson when we reach out to other organizations, please just email cheerleader@strikeforchoice.org. That's the central hub. A few volunteers have access to it, and we'll make sure it gets to the right person. So, for example, before December 1st, I managed to speak on the Refuse Fascism podcast, which brought in a lot of folks, right? And I was speaking from my experience. We all have experience that can be useful to various podcasts. It's a great way to get things out. Refuse Fascism is now an ally, right? Similarly, what I would encourage you all to do is to go to other progressive protests in your area. It doesn't matter if it's talking about Medicare for all, which maybe you don't think is a top priority right now. Go, because you're going to meet people who care about the same things you do. We're all suffering under one system of abuse, right? They want us poor, without healthcare, sick, pregnant, dying, and working for, throwaway wages. That's what they want. Shot in the streets too, maybe, but this is what we're all fighting against. So find your allies by going to protests in your area, even if that's not your top issue. Make the time. I mean, maybe you'd rather watch a movie that day, just go, go for the first half hour. You'll meet people, I guarantee, right? And then invite those people to a salon, if you can host it, or find somebody that has a patio, just have tea or wine. Don't start drinking before you chat, but, have those conversations. We need to, accelerate this. We don't have years to build this, right? We need to say, this week, what am I doing? I'm going to try and do 2 things. And you only need to find one ally, really. But if you find 12, like Granny Ruth has, then, you're good, you're golden, right? But behind the scenes, we're talking to Code Pink, which is massive and completely lined. I mean, they did a bunch of protests for us in the Bay Area, and I'm talking, so we have approval from Medea Benjamin, who's the founder of Code Pink. They are willing to stand behind us, right? This is a huge organization, and they're all, as crazy or crazier than Granny Ruth, okay? These are protesters who know how to get media, who know how to deal with police. We want them. And they want us. They approve of this. So we are in talks with them. So anybody else who wants to participate in these talks, please reach out. We need all of you. I mean, this is an entirely volunteer organization, right? And the fact is, people think Planned Parenthood or Women's March is going to save us, right? They have completely, this is what we got from them, right? What we accomplished was local. So Women's March San Francisco has been trying to get the attention of Women's March National for years. So they are allies of ours, and they endorsed us. They posted about us on their social media, Instagram, Facebook, everything. So they endorsed us. But this is not Women's March National. This is San Francisco, right? So that organization is dysfunctional, and people are still sitting there thinking, oh, Women's March is going to do the thing. Well, no, they are conservative, actually, as it turns out. Planned Parenthood is conservative. They want to keep providing women's health services when Roe gets reversed. This is their byline. They believe it's going to get reversed, and they're planning for it. They're not going to stand up and create havoc right now because they want to make sure that they're alive to save lives. And that's fair, right? So the thing is, you have to find allies who are aligned with you. Not everybody will work with you, but the folks who are willing to do the same kind of shenanigans, those are our allies, right? So we need all of you, because we need spokespeople. We need, there's a good geography represented here. We have people on both coasts, people, Florida, Massachusetts, California, Oregon, Washington, we have a bunch of allies, right?
Anyone in New York?
New York. And then also Arkansas, Ohio.
Today at Columbia. There's a big strike today at Columbia. People should be aware of, just following on what you were saying.
Right.
Join in if anyone is close enough to Columbia.
And what is the strike about?
It's graduate students.
Perfect. Yeah.
For living wage. It's around lots of students.
So this is the thing, right? in the video, what I tried to allude, and we're going to have to modify that, is in the US, strikes have always been about labor fighting for their own protections and for their own wages. That's it, right? Labor has not stepped up for human rights. And this is a chance. I mean, we know that there are, women in unions who care about choice. We know that unions will be destroyed if Trump comes back to power. So they want accountability. All these things, it's all of a piece, and we need to recruit. So if you know people who are labor leaders, people who are volunteering with their local unions, please reach out, connect us. Let's get them all in.
There was just one other thing I wanted to follow up on what Justin was saying. I think it's useful for the whole audience. You're talking about accountability and the lack thereof so far from the Justice Department or Congress and both sides. And also media. Are you familiar with Gaslit Nation?
Yeah.
Podcast? Okay, yeah. So Sarah Kendzior has done a lot of digging into Merrick Garland's background.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah. And so I think more generally, that sort of awareness, I think, will be helpful moving forward, because I think there's a certain naivete that often comes along with, at least what I've seen in these movements, and just expecting that if we go ahead and do the work and put things out there, it's just going to go smoothly. Right? As Justin said with the trolls and these things, right? So I think having that awareness and informing people about it, and then empowering these connections to be formed, or the people who do have some understanding can then spread that well, and so that we can actually make something out of that, right? Because people very often uncover these things, but then that knowledge just remains siloed, and it doesn't come to any fruition, anything useful. So I think that's
Right.
So this is one thing, Mark, that so there are organizations that are trying to reach out to the old time activists, the folks who were active in the 60s and are still interested and willing to do stuff. The thing is that many of them are not on Twitter, right? Now, what you're going to find is what Justin and you are aware of, right? The depth of knowledge you have actually is from Twitter, is from your engaging on Twitter and reading and listening deeply there, right? And this is absent. People watch TV, they read their other social media, but they're not on Twitter. What we need is a cross-pollination from Twitter to other social media. And we're really looking for help with that. What we can do is even a simple, one article saying, Sarah Kendzior does this. Heather Cox Richardson, is a historian, she does this. So-and-so does this. And create a list, Ellie Mistel. All the folks who are speaking truth and are not heard loudly, we need to make a reading list. There could be not a book club, but a media club of this, right? Something like this has to happen.
Vera, if I could, because I'm in communication with Pam Keith, and she's like half an hour away from me.
Yeah.
And so I really want to be able, she helped me develop the plan I'm going to let you know about. And you, Vera, some of this, right? But I have a 3-point plan, because activism is not going to save us. Okay. Activism alone is not going to save us. Okay. So the plan that I'm creating, I helped Vera create the Vigil. Okay, I was with her for 3 weeks in front of Nancy Pelosi's office, because a lot of you don't see me, okay? But the 3-point plan I have, AME, okay, activism, media, and elections. And so when it comes to activism, all right, the Vigil for Democracy, I'm establishing an umbrella group, all right, on Open Collective. And the problem I'm running into right now is simply like the logistics, because Snowden Bishop, who I'm working with, she's got COVID right now. All right, but the umbrella group that I'm making, we have organized. We have a bank account, and using that, we can be a fiscal host, and other groups, any group across the country in the U.S., Black Lives Matter group in Missouri, or someone in San Francisco, can set up a collective that will enable them to fundraise, to budget, fundraise, and do expenditures transparently without having to organize or make their own bank account. So that is something that I'm working on. And there's a model, allforclimate.earth, which is being used in Europe for climate justice. That's the model that I want to use. Okay, activism. Now the media part, I'm focused right now on podcasting, because it's really easy. I can get anybody that wants it on Spotify. So Jay, I think mentioned, not sure who it was, the Refuse Fascism podcast. I will help market all of that stuff. I will show you all of the tools that you can use. I want to set up where it comes with, Jenny Cohn. I even offered Pam Keith to set up a podcast for her. And underneath media, I'm working with Regina Marston, and Regina Marston's got a market. She ran for California's 42nd. All right. She has 30 years of marketing skills. She's giving me all of the insider talking points from the Democratic National Committee. So I'm seeing what she's actually writing. And then when it comes to elections, there's two parts of this. The first part, I'm tracking elections, all elections. I have tons of lists of who's running. David Hogg wants to track under 30 elections. Okay, and I mean, there's tons of people. I can track elections anyway. Progressive Democrats, do they support cannabis? It's all that's very, very easy. I'm tracking the QAnon candidates and seeing and putting people, if there's people against them. I'm working with Shannon McAllister to set up an opposition research firm so that we can actually get all of this information out. Twitter Spaces, I cannot overstate how great of a tool this is to build community. 2 nights ago, I spoke with Natalie James. Her Twitter handle is @JamesForArkansas. She's a Black woman with 3,000 followers on Twitter, and I was like, oh well, she's able to articulate the issues, which was great. And I was like, but I don't think that this is, but as I'm listening to her, it's not just her, because she's an amazing candidate. But she's in touch with 26 other people across the country running for Senate that are first-time people running for Senate. Okay, and so now what we have is a messaging arm. We have an arm to get people elected into political office. And like when I talked with Natalie James, I told her, I said, we need to get activists running for office. And she said, well, that's where I came from. She goes, I believe in direct action. The problem is a lot of other politicians don't understand direct action. So now the other thing is Snowden Bishop, she's been sick. Now she's offered me, I said, listen, I know that your show is owned by you and that this is the way that things work, but it's an arm of my media arm called For Greater Good. And she goes, okay. Now she has a nationally syndicated show on cannabis. Now there's a woman named Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace is a Republican from South Carolina. She has a bill up called the States Reform Act. Now, with the States Reform Act, what's going to happen is it's going to decriminalize cannabis at a federal level and expunge all past records. And so it will release people from jail, right? The problem is it won't do anything at a state level. And so I see Republicans setting everything up to look like, oh, well, this is going to be our win. And even if it comes off as a Republican win, let them, because the problem is they don't understand that me and Snowden are already working on a 50-state rollout of state initiatives with the same language that's there, because no one at a state level will have their rights returned to them. So if we do these initiatives on a state level, how can the Republicans embrace cannabis, right, at a federal level and not at a state level? And if it goes at a state level, all of these felons will be released from jail and have their rights restored immediately because of the verbiage. So they can't be for one and against the other. Okay, they can either be for cannabis or against cannabis, and in either way, it's going to help us. And Stone's offered the use of her show for me to do this, for me to highlight people, because we already planned we're going to get a Republican, and then she's already got Cory Booker. She wants to get in touch with Susan Sarandon, Danny Glover, all of these people to come later, right? So we're trying to manipulate the situation, and then if I can get in touch with people that are involved with the amendment to get felons back their rights, which was a really big activist movement in Florida. Okay, and if I can get in touch with cannabis activists, we can then start building an even bigger umbrella group where we have people that might not be involved in activism, but that are on our side. And we're able to get our messaging out. We're able to get people elected to Congress, and we're able to get people out on the streets. It's all synergistic, and it's going to build off of each other.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Scotty wanted to say something.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'd seen that there's the No Hump Day event that'd be every Wednesday, no, like among it, no makeup on face, no dealing with your hair. I mean, that's why I'm looking like I am today. I want to do more than that though, but I'm not seeing any protests around here. I live in Virginia, in Norton, Virginia. So, do you know if there's going to be anything going on this way in the weeks to come?
So we have a couple of people who reached out from Northern Virginia, but said that perhaps it's not safe for them to protest. So tell me about your particular location. What I heard from these other two individuals was that Trumpers tend to drive by and scream at them and throw stuff sometimes, which is not something we want people to have to face. So what is your town like? Scotty, we can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Back in October, there was a women's march here and I was in it and I got harassed at it, got called a baby killer. I live in Norton, Virginia. It's in Southwest Virginia. But at the time when the march happened, there wasn't a whole lot of negativity. I guess we were lucky. But I mean, we got a lot of positive feedback. A lot of horns were honking, and but now there was that incident there towards the end. I mean, it's a very red area around here.
Yeah.
But well, okay, if there's not going to be any physical events, I mean, what besides like the No Hump Day
Right.
campaign?
So the
Like
question is, are you in touch with any of the organizers of that of the October 2nd march, or could we try to get you in touch with them?
Yeah, the organizer, she works at the Lee, she's the Lee County Democrats chairperson, and she comes here at our Democratic Party meetings. And yeah, I'm in touch with her. So I was actually thinking about reaching out to her and seeing if we could work on something together.
Yes. If we can set up a meeting with her and then have figure out a plan, right? Then we can safely have people in the streets or at your local AT&T store, which is really what we would be recommending. Instead of being in the streets, you want to be in front of the store, walking into the store in small groups, and pressurizing them to stop donations to those Texas legislators. So yeah, so let's talk about that. Let's connect by email and sync up with this person who organized for October 2nd.
What is your email address again?
So I'll put it in the chat. It's cheerleader. It's not my email address, but it's where we're funneling all these actions. So cheerleader@strikeforchoice.org.
Cheerleader@strikeforchoice.org. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I put it in the chat, and then let's connect there. So we are at 10:30, which is an hour. That's a long meeting by anybody's measure. So any last thoughts? And then we have another class. The focus on that is about urgency, is about how to build quickly. So we've recruited somebody really interesting to speak at that one. Till he confirms, I'm not going to name him, but it's somebody who's lived in Russia, has seen how quickly democracy can fall. And so it's a really interesting perspective for us to take. So hopefully we'll see most of you back next Wednesday at the same time. But meanwhile, any last thoughts on strikes?
Yes, I have some thoughts. This was all quite interesting, but we never really talked about No Hump Day. We never talked about how we're going to try to get people from the thought that voting alone is enough into activism.
Right. So I'm not sure that as individuals, we're going to be able to. So basically what's needed for this is a marketing campaign. And there is someone who has who was responsible actually for the success of October 2nd, because it was not Women's March that made it a success. Okay, Women's March announced it, and they did not organize any of the protests other than the DC one, right? They basically said, oh, people sign up, and then the local organizers were, shouting into the wind, trying to recruit people, and Women's March really did not do anything. They wouldn't even post about the October 2nd date on their own social media once a day. It would go 2-3 days before they posted, right? This is what was going on. So there's some folks who are experts at viral marketing who basically took it upon themselves, because they care about choice so much, that they went in, and not as admins, but they were monitoring the social media feed of Women's March on Instagram, on Facebook, and commenting, posting, and creating virality, right? And I would say that they actually contributed remarkably to the success of the event on October 2nd. So they are on board with the No Hump Day. So if you go search for that hashtag, right, you are going to see they were on board before December 1st. We didn't want to launch that too early. But what I would say to everybody is go look for No Hump Day hashtag on social media and boost what you find. Interact with the pages that are pushing it, follow them, because that's part of that marketing team, right? This will take a little bit to build. It might take a month. Don't lose hope, all right? This is a clever idea. This is, once it hits, it tickles somebody's funny bone, it's going to be big news. Because the idea of abstinence as a strike is funny, it's appealing, it can be viral, it just takes a bit of work. So you can all get on it by searching for that hashtag, pair it up, use both the hashtags, Strike for Choice and No Hump Day, and start pushing that. And then we can, build from there.
When it comes to, did we get Susan back? Okay, now, Susan, you mentioned getting people out there. If you want, I'll help you set everything up. It's really easy to get a podcast thing going, super duper easy, and it's super easy to run a Twitter Spaces. I'll see if we can record those spaces. I can set it up as a podcast for you to get more market share and get seen more. And when I spoke about justice before, I didn't put it in terms of strike, because I've come out with Strike for Justice and Strike Omnia. The thing is that there's everyone has an issue to strike for, and it's all under the same umbrella, and it all goes to the same place. And so it doesn't matter what people are striking for, as long as we're moving towards a general strike. Okay, and Lee Caudle, she is the former supervisor of elections for Annapolis County in Maryland. And she was she was 15 years the senior administrator for the Board of Governors for the Federal Reserve, and so she's used to looking at and reading. And she talked with me before COVID happened about doing a general strike, and she knows how to read the numbers, so she can actually see if there has been an economic impact about what we do. So if we have targeted events, which we're going to need to work. It's not just a month, Susan. It's gonna take all year, and we need to use our economic powers in order to function as a block. And so, along with strikes too, I have Boycott NBC and Boycott NBC News, because they're owned by Comcast, which is an extremely conservative company. And if we want to move people left, okay, this can be our way of leveraging that issue. Okay, and so all of these, any economic issue, it's all under one umbrella, and we should all work towards the same goal.
Absolutely. So one thing I want to say about the hashtag stuff. So a few people are on Twitter. On Twitter, don't use more than 2 hashtags in a tweet, right? Because then Twitter starts throttling you. On any other media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, use hashtags. But remember, a hashtag is a link on Facebook. All right. So the way a Facebook post is seen with full organic reach is if it is plain text with photos of yourself, your puppies, your cats, cute stuff, right? That gets full reach among your friends. If you post a link to an article, you post a link to a petition, you put a hashtag in the post, it will not be seen. Now, there's other factors. If your text has political content, if it mentions Trump, if it talks about choice, it's going to get throttled because Facebook is a fascist platform. Just remember this. But the thing is, you're hurting yourself if you put links into your posts. Okay? So when you make a post, compose it, create a Word document or a note, put down what you're going to say, decide what photo you're going to include in there. Maybe photos, maybe it's your, puppies, from birth to today, whatever it is. Formulate that and then post it. And then in the comments, put the hashtags, put the links. Mention that you're going to be doing that in your post, but do not. Your post should be complete plain text, nothing in it, right? Keep that in mind. It's very hard to do because we've all been taught, oh, cite your references, make it easy for the reader. And when you do, Facebook will penalize you. If you share something, you see content you like, right? You go share it. The next day, go take a look at who has looked at it, who has interacted. It will be 0 if it's progressive content, right? The reason is Facebook will not show your posts, your reposts and shares to anybody if it's progressive content. If it's right-wing, yes. If it's progressive, no. You have to tag the people. So you know who your usual suspects are, right? Your friends who care about progressive content. You have to tag them in the comments. Mention their names, call their attention to it. Otherwise, you will have 0 interactions and you think your friends don't care. No, they don't see it. Facebook will not show your content to your friends. It will not show your content in groups where people have signed on to see that content. It still won't show it to them. People think groups are some kind of special wall where inside that, oh, people have already signed up to, say that they care about abortion. So of course, Facebook is showing it to them. No, nobody will see it. This is a fact. You have to tag people and you have to refrain from using links in your posts. I will say Heather Cox Richardson is a great example, right? The historian. If you don't follow her, if you don't read her letters, please do. She's only on Facebook. I think she tweets as well, but her content is really on Facebook. Take a look. It's completely plain text. And then the first comment below the post will have all the references, right? This is not how a historian writes. She's modified her writing to work for Facebook. She knows that links will make her post not be seen. So we should do the same.
Also,
All right.
there's something out there on Twitter called Twitter Review. And if you ever see the newsletters, you can start your own newsletter for free. And I mean, anybody can. And that goes for like Refuse Fascism and the Wall of Moms and everything. And this is a great way to expand your mailing list because that's really important. Okay. And they have a really great, easy extension. So if you're online and you see an article that you want to tweet about or make an article about, you just save it, and then it brings it in to your newsletter. So it's super duper easy, and that you can put it as a link. So your bio, and then at the bottom it says read their newsletter. And so I mean it's one click, and you sign them up. So it's really, really good. Also, something else. I have made some Twitter lists, and I would be happy to make more lists for anybody on any issue. One of the ones I did was pro-choice. I got about 140 different groups, so that were focused on choice issues, NARAL and NOW and all of those things. And so when you don't know exactly where to go or who to post on for like choice, you could just go underneath that Twitter list and then just start tweeting replies or retweets of these groups. And so I started a Twitter list for active strikes. I've only got like 15 or 16 because I mean, I have to do the research of who's striking, add that to a list, who's striking, add that to a list. But for any issue that you guys might be interested in, I'm more than happy to help out and build. So if you guys, my Twitter is at Just Resisting, you reach out to me and tell me what you need and I'll do it for you.
So everybody should try to open a Twitter account if you don't have one. It's useful to have it just to browse. You don't have to be tweeting. You don't have to be, creating content. It's a useful way for you to curate your news and read it. So if you don't have one, it's much simpler than even making a Facebook post. Please think about doing that, that would be great for all of us to have.
One of the ladies,
One thing I
I'm
would,
sorry, one of the ladies helping me out with the elections, Bonnie Racin, she comes from like a Teamster background, and what she's told me to do is she said, reach out to the labor unions and all this and all of the local labor unions. And so she's actually helped me with as far as not just elections, but connecting with the labor unions of each individual place as a way of promoting strikes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right? You were saying something.
I was starting, yeah. So one thing that you had mentioned in the Refuse Fascism podcast interview with Sam was about having pamphlets, specifically, I think it was about Whole Foods, right? To people with the information so that you can have an impact, right? And give people things to think about. Do you know if there are any templates for those, or
So
I think it would be really helpful.
we
to
have them on the
people-
website. So
Okay.
on the strikeforchoice.org, I mean, people use them all
Yeah.
over. Basically, it talks about what you can do. You know, what do you do if you go into the store? And then at the bottom, it says, like, how do you respond when they talk to you, when the manager approaches you, when other shoppers ask you what you're doing? And then it says print the script. And it basically was a printout, which you could cut into 6 pieces. It's a pocket script.
Yeah.
And it was really effective. I mean, I had a bunch stashed in my back pocket. I pulled them out and handed them out. People were like, wow, I didn't know that Whole Foods was, you know, this bad. I didn't know. So it was really useful because people take that, and then you have the website on there, they can go back and look at more information.
Yeah.
So yes, we're going to be creating this and expanding it with the website, which has not been updated since December 1st because the web designer, you know, her grandmother was in the hospital. She's back at work only today. So we haven't updated it, but it will be updated for No Hump Day. But it was really fully fleshed out. It was, I was really pleased with how useful the website was. It saved us a lot of work because people were able to just download, print, and then run with it. I think Susan was able to use that.
Vera, I looked at some of the anti-choice websites.
Yeah.
One of them was overturnroe.org.
Yep.
And the problem is that they have a brilliant website. And so, yeah, and one of the things they do is they push freeway blogging. And then they have a shop set up where you can go and set up and buy free, you know, choice or you know, life or whatever. And then they explain how everything works, and you can buy all the stuff from them.
Yep.
It's very well put together. And
Yep.
so I was.
So they are hugely well funded. See, this is the problem. We are like, you know, building things together with sticks and stones. They have Coke money, right? So this is the problem we have. And so the other effort that's going on is making big money donors care enough. See, Women's March could have done this. They could have said, if you want to go to DC, but you can't get there, donate what you would have spent on that trip. Right? We would have gotten huge numbers of people in DC. We begged, we tried to get this message to Women's March, complete stonewall. They did not care. They had got 200 protesters at the Supreme Court. Hold the line, surround the Supreme Court. They couldn't. 200 people can't surround that block, right? It was embarrassing what they did. And the number of protesters in the morning, even though Planned Parenthood, Center for Reproductive Rights, all these folks got their local DC folks there, they were outnumbered 10-1. By the pro-life protesters, by the crazy loons. And what they had done, their churches had bought each of them a megaphone, right? So you have a sea of crazies with megaphones, and then you have these DC, you know, protesters completely outnumbered. They were all, I mean, literally they needed therapy after that morning. They were so depressed, right? This is what we have. We have funded protesters, well-funded, well-equipped protesters who are right-wing, and then we have us who have to create the, you know, the counter force, but we can do it. We have the smarts, you know, we can get the money. There are good people willing to donate money if they see that things are being done right.
Miss Marston, Regina Marston, she's involved with all the marketing stuff. And what she told me was that Alyssa Milano approached her about being part of her talking point group, her influence group. And so if you want to get in touch direct with Alyssa Milano, instead of trying to get in touch with the Women's March, reach out to Miss Marston. I put her Twitter handle. It's @Marston4CA42.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, these connections are going to pan out. We're going to be able to get get trouble in the streets. There will be mass unrest. I believe it. So thank you all for being here. Now we're at, you know,
Thank
I
you,
think
Ron.
Yeah.
70, 80 minutes. So let's sign off and
Yeah.
we'll be
And
back.
Mort,
next
if you
week.
wanted to get in touch with me, I don't know what the best way is.
Yeah,
We
we
can
follow each
talk
other on
later.
Twitter. Yeah.
You sent me something on Twitter?
We're connected. So yeah.
Okay,
I will.
you can send me a DM. Bye,
Yep.
everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.